going on, everyone? Welcome to the Peanut Gallery podcast. This is the place that we provide completely unprofessional and insignificant opinions about the most important and significant topics of the day. I'm your host, Jared, and with me as always is Seth. Seth, how you doing, man?
Doing well, man. I'm really getting excited looking at these polls, watching them get tighter and tighter up to this election. It's going to be an exciting election night, watching how these votes get cast. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show, so I'm just excited to get started.
Yeah, definitely. We're recording this a few days before the election. This is going to come out Monday, the day before. So when we talk about the polls and stuff like that, it's going to be a couple days beforehand. However, right now, since the latest, FBI reopening their investigation into Hillary Clinton, the polls have definitely tightened. The polls tighten anyways, typically during the end of an election cycle. However, they're tightening, even more because of this reopening their investigation of Hillary Clinton.
Like you think that this is this is what's driving. You think it's dropping Hillary, or you think it's raising Trump, or?
I think it's raising Trump with independence. I don't necessarily think. I think that this reopening the email investigation isn't necessarily taking away from Hillary's hardcore supporters. I think that they still think that Hillary's better than Trump.
Yeah.
I think that it really hurts her more with independents and stuff like that, who then might kind of swing their votes more towards undecideds, who might then vote for Donald Trump. Because we've seen Donald Trump, Hillary's kind of stayed about the same, but the difference is Donald Trump has actually gone up a little bit. Real Clear Politics has the polls right now as pretty much a dead even. It's within the margin of error.
It's crazy.
However, though, even with the general election being within the margin of error, if you look at the actual states in the Electoral College, the way it's decided, it still is harder for Trump to win because he's got to sweep all of the toss-up states, and then he also has to take a state away that's leaning kind of more a Democrat towards Hillary. So if you guys are watching ever throughout election night tomorrow, if you see, Trump lose either Florida, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Colorado, then, you can almost kind of call it there, because he's got to sweep them all and then take one away from her. So we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But just make sure you guys go out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for. Go out and vote. Make your voice heard. It's your duty as a citizen. It needs to be done.
Yeah, definitely go out and vote. All right, moving on in the news, we have the Apple MacBook Pro event. Seth's going to run down a little bit of what that looks like.
This freaking event, man. So we had our last PGP where we talked about Apple and how they've kind of been stagnant in a lot of areas, and they had this Mac event coming up. And we were hoping that they were going to refresh some of their 3- and 4-year-old computer hardware. Nope. Let's just refresh the MacBook Pro line and not even refresh it well.
That's crazy,
It's very, very frustrating when I watch this event. All they add, so the new MacBook Pros, thinner, lighter, faster, the normal stuff. The big change they did was they got rid of all of the function keys at the top of the keyboard, and they added I believe it's an OLED touchscreen interface thing that can change to the different programs you have loaded on at that current time. It seems so gimmicky. Make your dang screens touch. Like, just put touch in. Just accept it. People like touch. Like, what are you doing?
Haven't computers been touchscreen for years now?
Not Apple computers. But yes.
Not Apple's, but I'm saying every other,
Windows
I feel like every other company's.
Any computer you buy, any new laptop is going to have a...
Yeah, they're all touchscreens.
Yeah, it's going to either have a touchscreen variant or it's only going to be touchscreen. Like, you really can't find a computer.
Why would they not do that? Is there any disadvantages for them to make it touchscreen?
They say that they want to keep touchscreen on the mobile and iOS, and then they want to keep the Mac OS separate, and that touchscreen doesn't really gel well with the Mac OS. I think that is a archaic philosophy, and they need to update it.
I have a Mac. I think it would work fine.
Well, I mean, if Apple says it's not going to work fine, Jared, I mean, they know best. You don't need a headphone jack.
You're right. Exactly. I don't need it.
They also took out every useful port. They gave you 4 USB Type-C Thunderbolt ports, which are very versatile. They're great ports. They took out the micro SD card slot. which pretty much any photographer ever uses. So that's frustrating. You can't use any of your traditional flash drives, hard drives. You have to buy adapters. You're gonna have to buy all right.
You have to buy the updated USB-C drives, right,
Exact
in
Type
order
C.
for it to work.
Yes. The greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
The greatest. I love it. You can't if you buy a new MacBook Pro, and you buy a new iPhone 7, you cannot connect the two with a cable unless you go out and buy an additional cable. This is how fragmented Apple's philosophies have become on their products. I mean, it used to be,
Hold on.
you buy an iPhone, you buy a Mac, they're going to work together. They're just going to work. That's how it worked. Now they can't even
Well, it will
connect.
work. You just have to spend $50.
It's mind-boggling.
We haven't talked about the most important thing, though. The thing that everyone is looking at and the only thing that matters. Is the device thinner?
Yes, sold. It's also shiny.
I'll buy it, man. Dude, it's thinner. I'm on board.
I am very upset with this product. It doesn't feel professional. They got rid of the MacBook Air. Now they have a stripped down 13-inch MacBook Pro without the Touch Bar, and they're marketing that as the new Air, but it's not an Air. It's still a MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro, I mean, Pro is short for professional use. This device does not feel professional. It maxes out at 16 gigabytes of RAM. 16 gigabytes of RAM is becoming more and more just the lowest you should have. It does not have a dedicated GPU. Because why would you want that for professional freaking video editing?
That's boggling. That's crazy.
It's insane. And the port thing, I'm very curious to see how this sells. It will probably sell very well. It's Apple. But I was not impressed. They didn't even mention their 4-year-old their 4-year-old Mac Pros, their 3-year-old Mac Minis, their 2-year-old iMacs. None of that got.
I think this is gonna hurt them, man. I mean, people aren't seeing the growth that they've come to expect with Apple. We talked about this a little bit last week, but I think just kind of continuing on in that, people expect growth. Apple has to go above and beyond, and again, they just haven't delivered that, and I think that's gonna hurt them.
Yep. Yeah. So I was not impressed, and they're very expensive. I mean, the non-Touch Bar 13-inch, which is like the new Air, starts at $14.99. The Touch Bar 13-inch starts at $17.99, and then the 15-inch with the Touch Bar starts at $23.99.
So you're paying an extra $300 for this Touch Bar.
Yep. Not worth it.
And if you're going up to the 15-inch, you're paying a lot more than that.
That's getting so
crazy.
close to that Surface Studio, which started at $3,000. I would just save up the extra $700 and buy that beast. That thing was awesome.
600. Yeah.
600. Math is hard.
That's crazy.
I'm not a math guy.
That's crazy, man.
It's mind-boggling. So I was not impressed with the event. A lot of people are excited. A lot of people are always excited for a new Apple product. I'm going to be very interested to see how it sells, but that is to be determined.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll definitely see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Going to move on into the main topic of the show. This one's kind of an interesting one. I think it's pretty relevant for the times, especially with the election season coming up. So we're going to talk about why millennials today typically lean left. So millennials are, the generation that's born between 1982 and 2004. And I think that it's becoming very clear that the millennial generation right now leans left and even flirts with socialism. Just some quick numbers here. In Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, over 80% of the voters under the age of 30 voted for Bernie Sanders, who is a self-proclaimed democratic socialist.
Which is just a socialist.
Which is a socialist, exactly. But yeah, some of these numbers real quick, and then we can talk about our opinions on why we think that they are leaning left, if we think it's specific to this generation or if it's because the majority of younger people just typically lean left anyways. But just to run some of these numbers, so this is according to a survey by the Harvard Institute of Politics. We have here 61% of voters under the age of 30 prefer that a Democrat be in the White House, while only 33% of them would favor a Republican. This is a 15%, last spring the gap was only 15%. Now it's much more than that. Over half of Republican millennials, so millennials who identify as Republicans, have a negative opinion of Donald Trump. 57% of them say that they don't like Donald Trump. But it's interesting because you have the majority of millennials who say that they're Democrat also disagree with Hillary Clinton. 53% of them don't like her. However, if you look at it, it's really interesting because you have a 4-to-1 people say that they support Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton.
Well, that was Sanders' bread and butter, was the young voters.
It was the millennials, exactly. Yeah. And I think that speaks to how they just kind of want to change the system. They don't like the established GOP. Obviously, they don't like the established GOP or any part of the GOP, but they even don't like the established Democrats either because they preferred someone like Bernie Sanders, who has these, they would call them new ideas. However, socialism is not new at all, but these kind of socialist tendencies and ideas is what they're supporting even more.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to blame them because, I mean, we're millennials and we haven't exactly had a great economy through any part of our life. Like, we've only ever known this crappy economy, this crappy government. I mean, middle class getting
definitely, man.
suffocated.
And I mean, if you're graduating college with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of student loans,
exactly,
and then you go out in this economy where you can't pay it off, like, why would you not want to support someone who's saying, you know what,
free college,
those student loans and everything like that, that's immoral. You shouldn't have to pay for college. We'll take care of that for you.
And while
I
mean, on the surface sounds great. Once you get into the details on how that actually, I mean, how are they going to afford it? Guess what? They're going to have to raise taxes because you can't just make money appear.
It's not plausible. Even if you raise the taxes, it still wouldn't be possible.
Yeah. but it sounds
anyway,
nice.
It sounds great in theory.
People just hear that and they're like, "Oh, I would love for my loans to be paid off. Oh, I would love to not have to worry about this." I mean, it sounds good, and I mean,
yeah,
free money. Who's going to say no to free, quote unquote, free money?
Yeah. It was really interesting. This statistic was also interesting because they polled them, and a poll came out that said that only 15% of millennials think that the country is moving in the right direction.
Nice. That's good.
Which is crazy. I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree that the country's not moving in the right direction. I don't understand why they would support, if they think that the past 8 years haven't been working out that well, why would you support an even bigger government? I don't quite understand that. However, they don't think that it's moving in the right direction, which I do agree with. Maybe not their reasonings, their solutions, but I agree with the diagnosis of it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the statistics and facts. So we're just going to talk a little bit about our opinions, why we think that millennials today are leaning left. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that millennials right now are young.
Yep.
You know, like we said, they're from 82 to 2004, so they're about 12 to 34 years old right now. And typically younger generations, just if you look at historic data and stuff like that, typically lean more left on economic and social issues.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, they have that going in their favor, for sure. I mean, do you think that, I mean, because we talk about how there's so much disdain for Clinton, do you think that a lot of these millennials voting for Clinton and these young people, that it comes down to that they wanted Bernie, they didn't get Bernie, but she's still a Democrat, so they vote for her? Because they're not going to vote Trump,
yeah, 100%. 100%. And I mean, they think that Trump's a racist bigot, too.
Which, I mean, there's
so
a
even
little
though
bit,
Hillary Clinton isn't,
that,
I think that, no, I'm not saying that I agree with that, but I'm saying that's how a lot of millennials view Trump.
Yeah.
And I think that they don't like Clinton because they know she's corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I think they more don't like Clinton on a personal basis, not her policies. I think they probably agree with most of her policies, but they don't like her as a person
Yeah.
because they've seen the corruption, because it's undeniable at this point.
Mm-hmm.
However, I still think they're debating that lesser of two arguments,
Yeah.
where they would prefer her over Trump.
Yeah, and it's hard to say that they're more left over being right, because really this is one of the first big elections that they're going to be taking part in, and it's not so much a left versus right election, it's a left versus Trump election, where Trump is not really traditionally what conservatism is. I don't think that
That's a good point.
I don't think they've actually seen an accurate representation of that side, and I think a lot of them attribute Trump to conservatism, and then they obviously dismiss conservatism because they look at Trump and they're like, well, I don't support that, and then immediately being conservative is not even in the question. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to listen to more about that, we had a video dedicated to reasons not to support Donald Trump, and that was one of them.
Yep.
That he's kind of ruining the name for conservatism and capitalism. So be sure and go check that out, because I think that's really key here when we're talking about millennials. They really do view Donald Trump as a conservative and a Republican and a capitalist, when he's not really supporting those policies for the most part,
But he
in our
is,
opinion.
again, he is carrying that banner. I mean, he is the Republican nominee.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, he is a Republican, even if he doesn't exactly, we think, hold up to the values and the things that the party was started on.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it also, I mean, I struggle between millennials voting left and then just young people voting left. I think that you can make an argument that more millennials vote left than previous like millennials vote left more than previous generations. But it's also, I think, important to recognize that traditionally young people just vote left, older people vote right.
Definitely.
That's just how it works. It has been more. The gap has definitely increased more with the millennial generation. Again, with Bernie.
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, exactly.
Of both things. Because another thing that we're going to talk about, too, is demographics kind of play a role in this. Mm-hmm. We were looking at some of these statistics before we did this podcast, and it's not a huge difference, but it's enough to play a factor in this on top of other things. But, the millennial generation is more diverse than any generation before it has been, and minorities and stuff like that in America typically support more democratic policies, so that's kind of plays into it, as well as them being young and stuff like that. They're also a more diverse generation, so that kind of plays into their voting habits
for sure.
And then in addition to that they're also the most educated generation. So a lot of millennials and stuff like that have gone to college, graduated college, are in college right now, and typically when you go to college and stuff like that, not all professors and not all universities, but a large amount of universities and college professors teach more liberal on social issues and stuff like that. So the majority of people in college and stuff like that lean more left because this is what they're taught. And then on top of that, when they graduate with, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 of student debts, and then they're getting out in this economy where they can't pay it off, that also plays to the whole, free college and stuff like that, which would then have them lean even more left. You know what I mean? It's kind of like this perfect storm of things that is creating this generation.
Yeah. And, I mean, when kids and young adults go off to college, I mean, you're given a lot of responsibility. You start to really become an adult. You become an important part of society in a way that you weren't before. And I think with that blossoming of being able to think your own way now that you're away from your parents, being able to make your own opinions about things, you're optimistic, and you're I want to help everyone.
Definitely.
You don't really understand how the world works. You understand how college works. Obviously, young people are a little bit more, I would say, ignorant. I mean, that's just, that's just what I would say. So,
they're definitely more optimistic, which I think is a good thing.
But a lot of what's left, it sounds good. I think it falls apart when you start asking the how question. But like having
which is pretty
free
important.
college would be great. Having free college would be awesome. Everyone go to college. Logistically, I don't think it's a plausible policy. Um, Having free healthcare would be great. Does it work in a realistic setting? No. I mean, people need to get paid. Uh, you can't support it on a government-run system. I mean,
Yeah.
instituting new government programs, it would be nice to be able to trust the government into doing anything right. I don't think there's any proof in the past, really,
That they
to
do.
support that. Exactly. And so
Yeah.
these optimistic views, while are nice and make sense that they draw these conclusions because they want to save the world, I mean, once you start getting into the real world, you start realizing that they're really not plausible and they're really just not feasible in financial ways, in political ways, in just life ways. I mean, there's it's one of those things like you get a dose of the real world once you get out into the workforce, once you start making a
Been out and about
paycheck
in a while.
and you start seeing all the freaking taxes that get taken out of your paycheck every week and how much money the government is
Yeah.
already getting and still not
Yeah.
being able to do much. And then they want to increase taxes more. And it's just it's a lot. So I mean, while millennials being younger, I think right now it totally makes sense that they would vote left and they would want these policies because they do sound good on paper, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it plays a lot into the generation that they're raised up in as well as them being young. The Huffington Post wrote a very interesting article. It talks about the we and the me generations. And if you're not familiar with this at all, there's a really interesting book called Pendulum. Definitely go check it out. I'll kind of give you the basic premise of it. But essentially that there's a swing between generations every 80 years between the we generation and the me generation.
Like the Nintendo Wii?
And it yeah, like the Nintendo Wii. And right now the millennials are kind of a part of the we generation, which is all about the collective good, the what's best for the society as a whole instead of the individual themselves. So I mean, everything that we talked about earlier, it makes sense because these government run programs, these entitlement programs, welfare programs, and stuff like that, all play towards the greater good for the society as a whole. Um, so like these things like higher taxes and stuff like that. I mean, obviously the millennials are younger, so they're not out there. You know, the majority of them aren't out there making the big bucks yet and taxed in the 39% bracket yet. But I guarantee you, a lot of them right now, where they are, would say, "I'm willing to pay these higher taxes if it means that these people get food, or this person gets their birth control paid for, or this person gets government housing and stuff like that." Whereas previous generations, the me generations and stuff like that, line up more with individual responsibility and say, no, why do I have to take care of that person when I've worked hard? Why do I then have to pay for it?
Yep.
And I think it's hard. I think there's pros and cons on both sides. I mean, now I completely agree that personal responsibility is a cornerstone of any society. I think that that's what we need to have. However, I think it's cool in a way that the millennials, and I think millennials get bashed all the time, which a lot of it rightfully so. But I think it's cool that there's such an optimistic generation and is so we oriented and wants the greater good for a society as a whole. I think that they just need to kind of learn, get their morals and get their principles in line, so that then they can really be effective. If that makes sense, you know what I mean?
And I think that helping those that are less fortunate is a
great trait.
exactly, and I think that is totally awesome. I mean, I don't think that is separate from being like the me generation. Like you can be a part of the me generation, keep your money, and I think the only difference would be that you would do it yourself rather than expecting
Exactly,
the
which
government
I
to
would
do it
line up
for
more
you.
with.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, we don't know how they're gonna evolve. I'm very interested to see how the millennials change, or maybe they don't change. I mean, how they get adjusted with this election coming up with whoever gets in. I think it's going to be a big wake up call for a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see if the trend continues with millennials. When the older you get, the more conservative you get. That's kind of been a trend in past generations. We'll see if that kind of continues on with the millennials.
And
I mean, if you look at stats and stuff like that, you would be inclined to think that it would. However, the way that they're being raised and stuff like that,
we
I'm
really
not so
don't
sure,
know.
but we'll see how it'll play out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I would imagine that the millennial generation is the generation that's grown up with the most government assistance. Would that be, you think, a correct statement? Like, they're the ones that have grown.
Yeah.
And so with that,
And in single parent households and stuff like
yeah,
that.
and
too,
so with
as
the
well,
fact
which
that they've
contributes a lot
grown
to that.
up with all of this assistance, the majority of them, it again makes sense that they would want to continue that and expand that part.
Yeah.
Like, so I mean, as soon as you get it's kind of, I think, a beautifully well done plan by the government to have these people depend on them, and then to raise kids
be
that
more
think that
reliant.
they depend on them, and then they're just continually going to grow the
Yeah.
government because they need them, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't think that's a good thing, but
Definitely.
it makes sense to think that way because that's how you were brought up.
Exactly. Yeah, and we've talked about this a little bit before. Each person, all they have is their own individual experience. So these people are brought up. Some people. Me and Seth were not raised in situations where our families had to be dependent on the government and stuff like that. We were fortunate enough to have parents who had the
Supported
personal
us.
responsibility and went out and were self-supporting of themselves and also us. Where a lot of times these millennials and stuff like that, and even the generation after them, a lot of them are raised in single-parent households where it's really hard to raise a child and also have an income and stuff like that coming in. I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think people should be advocating for single parents at all. I think there's great single parents out there, but I don't think it's best for the child in any way. And there's tons of statistics and facts that back that up. If you want to do the research on that, I would encourage it. But I think that just also plays into their ideology and why they believe the things that they believe.
And again, it's like you just need to respect the person, because someone that has grown up needing the government to get where they're getting, you can achieve a lot starting there, and that is great. It's great, and it would make sense that they saw this path that they took, and it was only possible because the government helped them out. And so it would make sense, and I would completely be on their side with the fact that they think that that's what they should keep doing so they can inspire more people and help more people. I think that's one of those things that sounds great. It comes down to the fact that the government really hasn't been a great track record of that many programs. So I'm very wary of, or weary of giving them more power and more money. While it does sound great, and we do have a ton of poverty and it's horrible, and we need to figure out a solution. And so for the millennials to vote left on these people like Bernie Sanders, who are saying that they're going to fix all these things and they're going to give free college, it's only logical that they'd latch on to that, especially when the opposition is Trump. Come on.
Yeah.
You have Trump saying he wants to deport everyone, basically, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just so important that you don't totally demonize the other side.
For sure.
I think that we get in habits of this all the time, and it's really infuriating. There's no progress that's going to come forth of that. You have the 10% on the far right and the 10% on the far left, just throwing these hate slurs and stuff like that at people all the time. And then you have all the people in the middle who think that that's how everyone on one particular side is, and it's not constructive, and it's not good. So, obviously, if you disagree with someone, you need to voice your opinion. You need to tell them what you believe is truth, but you need to, at the end of the day, come away with respecting the person and stuff like that. As long as you can agree on certain moral principles and values, I think that's what the most important thing is. No matter if the person has a differing opinion or not, you can still respect them as long as those things line up. So
Definitely.
I think that's key here, especially as the country. It doesn't seem like we're gonna get any united anytime soon. So I think that people really just need to keep that in mind.
That's actually a good. I think that also plays into it, because, you can't I don't think there's an argument to say the media isn't biased for the left. I mean, I would say main media. What is it? TV, like CNN, NBC. All of the main media outlets are Democratic leaning, I would say, and so
Yeah.
I think even though less and less people watch TV, they're still surrounded by a lot of that kind of propaganda, and so I think that is also influential.
Definitely.
And I think that you look at the division in the country, and all of the media, or most of the media, to not make it an all statement, most of the media demonizes the right as a cause of that. And if you're not educated and you don't do your due diligence, it's very easy to just latch onto that and be like, well, they're saying it and they're probably right. They're on television. And then
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
you say that they're the cause of all of this division in the country.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And then to kind of play into that too with the media and millennials and stuff, so many of them are on social media. And the way a lot of times they get their, news stories and stuff like that from Facebook, and interesting studies come out about this kind of stuff. When you like something on Facebook and when you tend to share different articles and stuff like that, Facebook has data on what you're liking and sharing. So then they give you stuff that you're liking. So if you're liking a ton of pro-Hillary or pro-Trump stuff, all that they're going to be feeding you is pro-Trump, pro-Hillary
They have
stuff. And I think it's really
highly well-made algorithms that do that, and it's
exactly because they want to get your likes.
well, what they want is they
their
want
business
engagement with the articles they show you, because if you click
exactly,
and so it only makes sense that they're going to show you things you agree with, but then you get into the
that
danger
you're going to
of
like
just
and share.
creating an echo chamber.
Exactly, because you're not going to get any opposing views. So I think it's really important, whether you're on the left or you're on the right, to go. If you're on the left, go and listen to Rush Limbaugh. Maybe read some of The Drudge or Fox or something like that. And if you're on the right, go read the New York Times. Go read the Huffington Post. Watch CNN every now and then, because you want to have a well balanced. You want to be well informed. You want to know what people are saying on both sides of the aisles, so that you're not just in this tunnel vision kind of mode the whole time.
Yeah, and
I think that's really important.
And to talk about with the media and everything, I mean, younger people, I think, are more impressionable than older people. And you have pretty much every celebrity in any, I don't know, like in movies and music.
Any manner, yeah, you got music,
left.
Movies, television.
And you have these pro-Hillary ads that have Scarlett Johansson and all these celebrities coming out for her.
Beyonce, all that kind of stuff.
I mean,
yeah.
They're
Katy Perry.
Especially the younger generation. I mean, they're all into that. I mean, they follow them on Twitter, they follow them on Instagram, Snapchat, Vine. Well, Vine's gone now, but I mean, all of these things that they're constantly just surrounded by these people that I think, for better or for worse, are very influential in these young people's lives, and so I think that also plays a part. So I mean, it's all these things that there's
a lot that plays into it.
Exactly, and so I think it would be a safe assumption to say millennials lean left, and I think there's reasons to back it up, and for better or for worse, I mean, that's to be determined, but for sure they definitely lean left, and I don't know, man. We don't, obviously, and so I mean, it'd be interesting to kind of break down. I mean, we can't do it now, but it'd be kind of interesting to break down why, like, we haven't fallen into that trap. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to, I mean, this is, if you pull anything away from this, just pull away, have an original thought. You know what I mean? Question everything with boldness and do your own reresearch on it.
But it's illegal to do research.
Just because,
CNN told
only
me.
CNN can tell you. But yeah, no, just because, whoever, Beyonce or Katy Perry or Amy Schumer tells you something.
Oh, you had to throw Amy Schumer in there, man?
I had to, man. I had to. I'm sorry.
Ugh.
I can throw in, what's his name? Seth Rogen. I can throw him in there too. Or I can throw in Emma Watson.
You hear that Bud Light dropped them because their stock took a hit?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so great, dude. I love that. There's nothing that I love more than that.
It's awesome.
It's terrific. Anyways, yeah, no, just have an original thought. Question everything on both sides. Always do your own research. And that's how you become a well-informed citizen and stuff like that. There's nothing Yeah, I don't know. I think that you can take a lot of pride in doing your own research and being able to back your own stance on things instead of just saying, "Yeah, I agree with it because,
And
Brad Pitt or whoever it tells you."
like we've said before, I think it's important to get challenged in your beliefs. So don't just surround yourself in things that are supporting what you think. Venture out and see if you
Yeah,
go talk
definitely.
to people that have opposite views, or you go to news sites that you don't agree with and see if you can debunk why they would go after you or whatever. I think it's important to build an argument and to defend your position. That
Defend it as well.
grows you, I think, greatly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, guys. We're gonna move on to our pick of the week. Gonna finish off the show that way. So, Seth, why don't you go ahead and tell us what your pick of the week is, man?
Oh, dude. Ooh. All right. I have to stay calm for this one, man.
You struggling a little bit
Dude,
here?
so a couple weeks ago, I mentioned I was watching Dexter. And I also mentioned that I'd finish it way too quickly, which I did. I finished Dexter this past week. And I don't want to spoil anything because I don't know when it aired, but just it's on Netflix, so I mean, whatever, spoiler alert. I'm going to try not to spoil, but if you really don't want to know anything about or any opinions, stop listening now. I was not a fan of the ending. Very.
Was it as good as Lost ending?
I would put it on a similar level as the Lost ending. I think it was freaking garbage. It didn't make sense. It didn't fit the story. And really, it felt like it was trying to be an ending that another show had done before that was way, 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 way better. It did it 100% better. And it felt try hard. And, dude, like, it was pretty much up until the last episode. Like, I thought it was pretty solid. I mean, I had thought that it was kind of the last season was aight, but the last episode, so much stuff happened that I was just like, are you freaking serious? This doesn't even make sense. I'm very upset with it. Like, I'm very just, like, upset. Like, this show, I really...
I feel like TV shows do that sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, they'll have such an awesome story and everything and characters that they build up, and then they just don't know how to end it, so then they just let everyone down.
Breaking Bad. Go watch Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
that show...
I got to about season 4 of that show.
That show is perfect. The ending is the most satisfying ending. It was more... satisfying than The Office ending because it was consistent all the way through. The Office had that last season or so where there was a couple episodes I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Breaking Bad's ending, they nailed it. I would highly recommend that show. I really like Dexter. Not a fan of the ending. I don't know why they did it, honestly. I mean, I think there was a couple very obvious things they should have done that they were just like, nah, we're going to do it this way. It makes no sense, but whatever.
Go ahead and try it out.
Highly recommend watching the show still. I would say skip the ending, but if you get that far, you're gonna watch it anyway. I was just not a fan.
I feel you, man. Well, yeah, man. Speaking of things that don't make sense, I finished Stranger Things.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
nice.
Dude. This show, man, you gotta watch it. There's only, I think, like 8 episodes.
It's 9, and I just finished Dexter, so maybe we'll move on to that.
Yeah, go through and watch that, man. I mean, 9 episodes, you can watch that in like 3 sittings. This show is crazy, man. I'm stoked.
Like 2 sittings.
Yeah, 3 episodes apiece. 1 for you, probably. You don't do.
I'll probably just binge. I'll just do nothing all day.
Exactly. I'm stoked for season 2, man. Like, it's pretty cool.
Is it coming out soon?
It's a really awesome.
Announced?
I would assume if it's anything, well, it's a Netflix original series, I think. So if it's anything like, Daredevil or anything like that, it'll come out. It'll be 1 year later, and then
when's Daredevil coming back, man?
I think April.
Daredevil's so good. Go watch Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil was awesome.
The last season was
Daredevil was very good.
Sweet. So yeah, was it a satisfying ending in Stranger Things?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it ended well. I thought the whole. It's still like totally mind-boggling, but I thought I liked the ending. I thought it was a satisfying ending. I thought the story all the way through pretty much made sense. Like I've watched TV shows before where like characters will do stuff where I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That character would never do that. But like in this show, it pretty much it flushes people out really well. There's a lot of cool backstories and stuff like that on people that you learn kind of later throughout the show, which I really like. So definitely go check that out. If you're looking at something, it's a little spooky. It's not horror or scary or anything like that, but it's a little spooky, so it'll keep you on edge the whole time, and then it's got some cool plot twists and stuff like that. So definitely go check it out if you're interested in looking at something that will just kind of blow your mind.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to go watch it. Maybe we can do some kind of like post mortem on it or something. That'd be fun. Discuss.
Yeah,
it,
definitely, because
spoiler.
it leaves a lot of stuff kind of open to interpretation, so you could bring a lot of different opinions from it. So it would be interesting.
That'd be dope
to talk about.
Also, side note, Rick and Morty supposed to come back in December. I am so excited. Rick and Morty, amazing show. That show is so smart and hysterical. I love it.
Yeah, the writers of that show
are incredible. I think they just said they finished up the actual writing of the show, and the first episode should be coming out early December. I am very, very excited because it ended on kind of a cliffhanger, and the show is just so well done. Like, highly recommend watching. I mean, if you have a sensitivity towards language and dark humor, don't watch it. But if you can laugh about horrible things, frankly, go for it. Like, if it's in the vein of like South Park and Family Guy, kind of, but I think it's way smarter. I guess way smarter.
It's smarter. It's smarter, funny
more
stuff.
Intelligent, well written, complex.
Well, South Park can be pretty well.
South Park can be,
but yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not like the dumb jokes in Family Guy, which I love, but it's just on a different level.
Yeah, cool, man. All right, guys. Well, as always, thanks for listening to the Peanut Gallery podcast. If you want to come alongside us and offer your unprofessional and insignificant opinions, then go ahead and comment below. Be sure and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram on Beyond Porters Productions. Check us out on SoundCloud as well. We upload our podcasts every Monday, and then also later on throughout the week, we upload more in-depth segments about relevant topics of the day. This past week, we talked about the 5 reasons not to support Hillary Clinton and the top 5 reasons not to support Donald Trump, so be sure and check those out.
They're both awful.
Thanks for listening, guys. Exactly. Thanks for listening, guys, and remember, we're all a little nuts.